well. Cheryl, welcome.
Thank you, Julian. It's just such a pleasure to be here. Thank you for doing all that you do in the world.
And thank you very much. Just a minute ago, you were talking about some changes that you're seeing in the world. You were talking about illusions coming down. Tell me some more about that.
Well, there's a lot going on in the world right now, and it can be a very scary place. And this morning, I am just so present to all the illusions that we live through. And when I mean illusions, it's like our conditioning, the patterns, the fear that we have all been conditioned to buy into, all these false truths that create separation with all of us. And I'm just seeing how, all these illusions are crumbling for us to help us open up to what is real, what actually exists, and that we are all connected, and that source, the creator God, is in all things, is in us. And everything, if we allow it to be, is of the divine and is of love. Everything is vibrating. And so, I have these experiences, and it's always easier for me, or I go more deeply into it on my walks. I go for a walk every day, usually after lunch, but depending on my schedule. And my experience is such that I experience it more and more indoors. So I'm looking at the closet door there and can just tune into the deeper truth in all things. I look at the plant, it's alive, and the drapes, and continue to feel. And my phrase that I use now, and I read this, I am of the door, I am of the sky, and everything really is one. So I hope that's making sense, Julian.
Yeah. Yeah, this is one of the fundamental practices in Zen Buddhism is to try to see yourself in the world around you and the world around yourself. Thich Nhat Hanh often talks about how human beings are made up of non-human being elements. So we're composed of the minerals, we're composed of the vegetables and the plants, and we're composed of the animals and the air and the water. And you put all these things together and it makes up a human being. And you take one of them out and you don't have a human being anymore. So a human being is all of these things that are non-human beings. And here you're talking about something very similar, seeing yourself in the plants and seeing yourself in the door even right there. What's this like for you? What's shifting?
Well, and what a great question, what a great metaphor, and analogy. And uh, it's it's about the experience. We can read these things in a book that we are
Hmm.
Zen Buddha, and I studied Buddhism for quite some time, especially when I spent time in India, and love all these truths that we can access in various religions and modalities. But it's about the inner knowing. It's about the
Yes.
experience in the body. It
Embodying it.
embodiment, what
Hmm.
embodiment is. And there is just in the experience such a lightness, just a lightness of being. And it's it's not so much something to grab onto. Oh, I'm gonna make this happen. I've been on a very strong spiritual journey for 33 years now, a long time. Never really missed a day of meditation, um, maybe once or twice. And the practices, and I just see, I'm noticing how my practices have been so much about getting somewhere, healing, having a different experience,
Hmm.
just surrendering to a practice of various types
Yeah. Being
to
somewhere other than where you're at.
yes, and yet the experience is available to us all the time if we allow it. And sure, it's to me, it still is about removing the old conditioning, the old fears, the traumas, the wounds, however that looks, where energy is stuck, where the energy is not fluid within us,
Excuse me.
so that bless you,
Thank you.
so that we can have that experience, and it really is settling into that. And there are so many teachers, channels, great spiritual leaders today that are guiding us through this. And then people like you who are contributing. I'm just thrilled to be a part of it all. So,
Yes. It's very exciting. It's a very exciting time. That's absolutely for sure. Um, it's funny we're talking about the crumbling of the world around us, and it can be so scary and activating, and can be used as a tool for fear mongering to keep people in this little shell of their experience of just being stuck in the fear. I mean, right now I'm very congested because there's numerous fires burning around me and the air quality is absolutely terrible where I'm at right now. So it's very easy for people to look outside and see, oh, there's fires, things are burning, everything's coming down. And then you go on to the news or onto YouTube and it's all the fear and it's just this keeping you in this terrible spot. So you mentioned here different levels of knowing and embodying. And there's, I mean, of course, like the superficial, the shallow, deep, the first layer of the onion, which is you catch the idea. You start to become aware of an idea that's out there. It's all conceptual, it's mental, it's this ethereal framework that's way up here. And then gradually we understand it more and then we take it deeper. And then we actually start to embody it or practice it, where it's not a concept, it's not an idea of a place to get to, but it's something that we can experience here and now and to practice here and now. Talk to me a little bit about this in your work. How are you seeing this difference between seeing something, knowing something mentally, conceptually, and how do you translate that into a practice that you can actually embody or live or experience?
ah, what a good question. And first off, my compassion for being around the fires, and it's affecting your breath and congestion. And even when you were sharing that, I could feel my body went into a little bit of a contraction, my
Hmm.
shoulders ever so slightly, and my gut just
It's a
some
natural response, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And yet, if we can be in it and see that everything is as of source, it's part of the
Hmm.
crumble. So my question that comes in the moment is, what in you is wanting to crumble? What in you is ready to fall away with this fire, with these fires? So it's a rhetorical question, but you could answer it if you wanted to.
Yeah.
And and so with, you know, practices. Oh, I have been given, I think thousands of practices over the years. I don't know about you, but we can be given these practices from other teachers. And in the work that I do, yes, it's of the mind and it's a certain amount of understanding, intellectual knowing, we get it. And we first, when we do a practice, we go through the technical aspects. Okay, so I'm going to meditate and I'm going to breathe in this way. I'm going to focus in this way. And I'm going to continue to do this practice and see what I experience. And once we experience something through meditation or any practice, we may not be able to make that happen again. And yet we might have a profound experience, but we don't know what it is that made it happen. So that can be a challenge until we do learn how to create that experience again and again and again. And then it becomes reliable and we move to a new state of being. I love your question around practices because what I've discovered, our greatest, most transformative practices come from within ourselves.
Hmm.
We are all unique. We are all the creator and form in our own unique ways. And so in the work I do with clients, it's about helping them release what wants to crumble. We're using the word crumble today, not a word I often use, but what wants to crumble, what wants to be released. And we let go of that so we have access to our deeper truth, all
Sure.
the truths within us and the light
Mm.
of our being. And it's actually through that that we learn what our our deeper beliefs are, in the subconscious. So the clearing away are all the emotions that have been repressed, how we've been oppressed, that we weren't able to process the deep emotions.
Mhm.
Trauma is coded in the subconscious through physical sensations and emotions. So even the slight bit of tension that I just felt when you shared your experience, it's what our bodies do. It holds on to things until we can release it, that we have a method. And for me, it's with the breath, with the full breath. And underneath those emotions, we form subconscious beliefs pre-verbal at the age of 3, 2, 1, even in the womb. So
Mhm.
access those and releasing them gives us access to the deeper truths in our being.
Okay,
And
perfect.
and we discover more of who we are, and then from that comes these amazing beliefs about ourselves in the world,
Yes.
and we can reprogram the subconscious, create new neural pathways that are in alignment to that so that we can live in that.
I got you. So you're talking about an authentic version of ourselves that exists, the true version of who we are that exists. And it's about getting back to that, recovering it, finding it, reconnecting with this version of ourselves that knows how to thrive and knows how to navigate this world in line with the nature of this world. And the reason why so many of us have lost this is because of traumatic experiences that we've adapted to in lots of ways. So these things that are crumbling, that we're talking about letting go of, the practice of recognizing and identifying these patterns. And the patterns that I'm talking about are the ways that we adapted to situations that we couldn't navigate. In other words, trauma. So these patterns are what we want to practice being aware of, letting go of. And the more that we can let go of these patterns, the more we can start to make space for this version of ourself that has always existed, that still lives inside of us. And we're talking about recovering that.
Yes, yes. The truth of our being, the truths of all of us, and then our own unique truths that we can begin to live by. And so we start to see that those earlier patterns based in trauma, in fear, in confusion, all these low vibrations start to release, and it's sort of a step-by-step discovery. And I can say, my work has been, as time has gone on, more and more spiritually aware people that have done a lot of personal work, therapy, meditation, yoga, various practices for many years, even decades. I recently worked with a woman who'd been meditating 56 years. I'm like, oh my, I'm only at 33, and there comes in the comparison, am I
Mm-hmm.
enough?
Mm-hmm.
And and then I let that go. It's like, no, she found me. I have something that her soul needs. My soul, we are in alignment. And that woman evolved to a level that she could never have imagined. And yet
Yeah.
at the same time, I have another woman who just yesterday she texted me. We finished our time together, held that container for her, and her one of her goals was to become her own energy worker, and she'd been meditating since 2022, wasn't really rigid about it, not a long spiritual journey, uh, therapy, she did a little bit, but it never really worked for her, but she had the maturity, and she had to text me because on her own, without my help, she went to a place discovered some deep pain that needed to be released, that she was ready to release, and she was able to release it and discover more of who she truly is. And it was like she couldn't imagine, and she because so much of what I do is to help people become their own energy workers so that you don't need me. I don't wanna have people coming to me for years like, sure, we can work together, but I wanna help you learn how to do that, and then if you're interested, let's go to the next level where you can do it more and more and more, and that's where I think my most genuine contributions is to help others have the impact in not just themselves, but in the world around them, those connections, relationships,
Mhm.
what they're doing, how they are being in the world.
Yes. Yes. What you just mentioned is so important. First thing I want to make a note on is this idea that as somebody who's helping other people through their journey, it's not about creating a dependence on you, which is really a major part, a foundational part of modern therapy today. When I was in graduate school studying therapy, almost every teacher said something along the same lines, which is your number one goal is to get your client coming back. And
Ouch.
it makes perfect sense when you look at it from their lens. It costs a lot of money to get a master's degree. And a lot of people, I mean, some people go in debt free. They have a lot of wealth before that, but a lot of people take on a lot of debt. And so then they come out and they got to pay for it. And how do you pay for it? Well, you got to have clients coming in. This is not a therapeutic relationship. This is not the means for growth and healing. I find that when I look at it from that same lens of how can I help this person build the skills and tools that they need to find the wisdom, the truth, the knowing, the wholeness that's inside of them, that version of themselves that we were talking about, that is authentic and knows how to thrive. It has all the wisdom. It's inside of them. How can I help them find it? And how can I help them chart the way to finding it so they can do it on their own? And I find that when that happens, well, we go to all sorts of incredible places, which is something that you just mentioned. You're working with people who have been doing a practice for decades, 5 decades in some situations. And something happened the moment you started working with them, which is, I'm not good enough. And the comparison comes in. When we compare, it really only leads to one outcome, which is we suffer greatly. And I don't know about you, you tell me, when I work with people, I have never not seen the belief of unworthiness. I've seen it in every single person I've worked with, myself included, just like you noticed. It's there inside of every one of us. And how easily and how powerfully does this belief of unworthiness stop us from becoming this version of ourselves? It's like it's one of the strongest, first, biggest barriers that we have to become aware of and have to start to get through, that's stopping us from being this better version of ourselves. And I use better not as a judgment or comparison, just an analogy of where we're trying to get to. So if we're trying to let go of these patterns in order to become or recover this version of ourselves that exists, yeah, this belief of unworthiness, I'm not good enough, I'm not deserving, I'm not worthy of love. It takes so many forms. This is one of the biggest and first barriers that we almost always come up to.
Yes, it is so true, and I often describe it in the subconscious beliefs that I'm unworthy, I'm
Mhm.
not even I don't matter, and I'm unlovable. So very much what you're speaking to, and I think we all have various versions of those, and it is it's just the conditioning, and it's so pervasive in everybody. I have and some people will I had one woman heard me speak. She listened to and watched a video, and she said, "Is," and I was leading a little meditation, and I touched into those 4 points, and she said, "As soon as you said, 'I don't matter,' and I felt that, I burst into tears."
Yeah.
Because it would just, and so a lot of really successful people have that going on
Mhm.
in them, "I don't matter," so we're conditioned to prove that we do matter, must become successful, do all these things,
Yeah.
and we lose our sense of self. So the better that you're describing, becoming the better version, is the truer version, right?
Sure.
Uh, it's accessing all of those within us, and I've accessed these, the unworthiness, like you say, for decades, and poof, there it was for a moment, and I can go, "Oh, yeah, okay, that's just the old conditioning," and I could spend time on releasing it at a deeper layer, or just choose the truth. The
Mhm.
truth was that woman's soul. All my clients, their souls definitely recognize something in me, and it's often not through words. It's often a felt sense or an emotion that happens. And so I'm so fortunate that
Mhm.
after doing this for so long, I rarely get in front of people who don't need me or actually need somebody else. But it is our work to do in the world, no matter the method. Whatever works for you, we're all unique. My method is about, I do a lot of chakra readings. I can see energy, and I see where our blocks are, where the traumas are, where energy is held, it's stuck, and I see it as dark in the being. I see chakras, and I can see meridians and the field. All of that is light and dark. And dark is just where the light is not flowing. So we all have a certain amount of light, and some, I get to see some really cool people. I would love to do a chakra reading for you, Julian, and see where all your light is. And where the blocks are just indicators of what is ready to be released. And that's those traumas that you're speaking of. That is the unworthiness. Where am I holding back from shining my light in the world? Literally, energetically, in all ways, we are
Mhm.
divine expressions. We are all an expression of source. Where are we holding back? And so to release those things so we can step into our worth. So important to step into our worth and to allow our light to shine so we recognize our own worth, and
Yeah.
so that others can too, and inspire them to do the same.
Yeah, because if this person who's been meditating for 55 years comes to you and is stuck, so to speak, or has reached a barrier, a plateau that they're struggling to get through, or they've forgotten or lost something and they need help in some way. We all do. And they come to you because they recognize something, but then that belief of unworthiness kicks in and you can't work with them because of that. Well, they, of course, don't get the help that they're looking for. And you miss out on that experience entirely. Because I'm willing to bet when you work with people like that, you can see yourself in them, you can see them in you. And these things that they're going through oftentimes reflect something that you've gone through. So you get to grow through it too. Cause I mean, that's my experience at least. So when we have these blockages, these beliefs of unworthiness, is not only do we lose out on helping others, but we miss out on the experience ourselves.
Exactly, you really hit the nail on the head, and that woman, as we met, and what first off, she contacted me and said she heard me speak, and she really felt like she was meant to work with me, but there was the money and there was the this and the that, and she wasn't sure. And she wrote me this, and so we hopped on a call and we talked, and it took a couple more emails, 2 or 3 more emails, and a few weeks, and I could just sit with the not knowing, "Oh, maybe this is meant to be." I'm not here to force anyone to work with, I'm not gonna bring in a big sales pitch, nothing like that. I allowed her the space. I allowed her the space to go through her process of whatever that was, and unworthiness comes in there even if it's not named. You know,
Mhm.
we can feel it. It's a felt sense. And then one day I read this long-winded email from her, and it was clear she was ready. She had committed not to me, she committed to herself to do the work. And there's no point to me in working with anyone unless they have a certain amount of commitment to
Mhm.
themselves. So I just responded, "Oh, it sounds like you're ready. Are you ready to begin?" And she just wrote me back, "Yes." Okay. So we move forward, and the discoveries were completely unimaginable. And one of the things she was concerned about, and unworthiness, you know, like you say, it ties into kind of everything because of our conditioning. And she wanted this sense of freedom. Now, this woman was very spiritually evolved, and yet she was looking at freedom as an external thing. Does
Mhm.
she need to leave her husband because she sees her, you know, this friend of hers who's single and has all this freedom to come and go as she pleases and do what she wants,
Comparison.
etc. Comparing, and then she has these grandchildren she takes care of part-time. Do I have to stop taking care of them? You know, I have a very loving family, etcetera, and she couldn't
Mhm.
imagine what freedom was like, and so we had to go back through and find where the energy was stuck, what those traumas were, and even, you know, a little bit through another spiritual teacher was, you know, that sort of held her back and she allowed it. And so we went through those and she discovered that true freedom is an inner experience. It
Yeah.
has very little to do with outside. And so she's in this, lives in such a high state of freedom and connected to all, and is experiencing nature, people, the world in ways she could never imagine. And at times it was like, who's leading who here? You know, like just present to her process. And like you say, the connection, there's always something in it for both. And it was just so inspiring, and it's like that with everybody I meet. There's always pieces that unite us, that bring us together in our sameness, and we're so conditioned to believe in separation, that we're apart. Bless you.
Thank you.
That we're up from each other. I know smoke really gets to me too, especially from fires.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. When somebody comes and works with us, there's something bigger happening here. And yeah, it's usually for both of us. Is what I see. Really interesting that you say smoke really bothers you too. It's funny. When I was a child, my mother was a chain smoker, and I grew up in a very very stressful environment where I ended up living on my own at about age 12. So the stress, the trauma was so high, and I had a near death experience when I was like 10 years old from asthma. And like, I mean, I was hospitalized for weeks and yeah, barely made it through that. And so when there's smoke all around, as it can activate um, that residual survival mechanism of this is life threatening in some ways. I mean, luckily I've done enough work around that now to where my body doesn't really respond. But even just the congestion and feeling it in my throat a little bit is I notice the subtle defense mechanism, the subtle survival mechanism, which is my mind will get busy. It's going to try and distract me and take me away from the present moment, which is in the past overwhelming, something I can't navigate. Luckily, I'm able to see that and work with it, and this really gets into that idea of freedom that you're talking about. So many people don't have a concept of freedom, or if they do have a concept, it's like you said, it's external. There's a fantastic album. It's by a folk punk band called Ramshackle Glory. And they did this concept album, which is all about his recovery from deep addictions. And what he finds through that is this addiction was really just a coping mechanism to the pain that he's in. And his ideologies and his need to be right and his intelligence and his going to be important through that, all of that was just a mechanism of dealing with this pain that he was in. And in one of the songs, he says, if freedom means doing what I want, well, don't I got to want something? And won't you tell me that we want something more than just cheap beer? Yeah, how many of us are in that? Like, we don't have an idea of what freedom actually looks like. And we always look externally. So when we don't feel like we're good enough, well, we can go work. We can go become doctors or therapists or nurses and spend all of our time working, because there we will be needed and we will be valued and we'll be rewarded for it. And so many people can think that freedom is accumulating material things like wealth, power, status, money, houses, cars. And you can meet all of the standards for success in our society and the standards for freedom in our society and still be miserable.
Yes, it's so interesting, and it often will lead to misery, to not because we have this high expectation, "Oh, the when I get this, I'll be happy. When I accomplish that, my life will be good. When I have this
Yeah.
kind of relationship, everything will be fine."
In the
Because the
future
in the future,
with
not in
conditions.
oh, with a whole lot of conditions. And so when you describe that, "Oh, the smoke," and you've done so much work around this, and you bring up something of me because I grew up in a family, everybody smoked.
Hmm.
We got to my parents both smoked, and my mother smoked a lot. She was a stay-at-home mom, and when we turned 15, we were allowed to smoke at home, 5 kids. So here were these teenagers, and
Yeah.
then even when we moved out and the family dinners, everybody's puffing away and
Hmm.
then I had my kids, and I noticed my daughter seemed to be really sensitive to smoke, so my husband and I would go smoke in the bathroom with the fan on to
Yeah.
exhaust it was crazy,
Yeah.
and then my family, when we were around her and she's just a little baby and they're all puffing away, I was like, can you guys go outside to smoke? I mean, she's a little baby, she's breathing this in. No, you take the baby outside." I was like,
Yeah.
"Serious?"
That's the way
Anyway,
people think
but I mean, I don't they wouldn't think that way anymore. Nobody smokes
at that
anymore,
time. Yeah.
and at that time
That's an example of the crumbling.
yes, yes, that's a gr and what you stated is your awareness in your body, how it still has a little grip and hold on you, and that is what makes such a difference, that awareness of what's happening physically and emotionally that can't help but shift you. Oh, I noticed this happening for me. So it makes me really curious when I'm around forest fires and I can't breathe. I mean, it really affects me, and I begin to feel kind of frantic. Where when I grew up around all that smoke, this is how it was, and so much of life was this is how it is. You got to suck it up. It's just
Hmm.
you don't have a choice. So a real complete lack of freedom, as a matter of fact, feeling controlled, trapped, confused, don't matter, unworthy of clean air, all those things come up. And
Yeah.
then as the crumbling comes along and we can open up to in the moment. They say with mindfulness to be in the moment, and to me, it's not just about the mind. It's the experience. It's how we're experiencing ourselves and allowing what is present as we are, as divine beings, and not getting caught up in we're still so conditioned, not getting caught up in it and forgiving, allowing, noticing, and every uncomfortable experience is is a part of God. it's source moving through, and if we can see the divinity in everything, it helps us lift.
Yes. Yes, because when this pattern of adapting to the stressful situation, so the childhood, the smoke, the abuse, the negligence, the near death, that all still lives inside of me. There's still a part of me who still carries that around. And when something like the smoke outside activates that part of me and um those emotions get activated, that part of me then wants to adapt to that situation again. And the way that I would adapt to it as a kid was, I mean, I couldn't set boundaries with it. I couldn't make it stop. I couldn't go away physically, although I did very early in life. So you go away mentally, you distract, you disconnect from the present moment because the present moment is too dangerous. It's too overwhelming. So we go away. Now, when we have disconnected from the present moment, we cannot engage or participate or navigate or interact with life. So then we quite literally become prisoners in lots of ways to the adaptation that at one point saved our lives. It helped us at one point, and now it has become a shackle that keeps us in this exact pattern of disconnecting from life itself. So I completely agree with you. Awareness, being able to recognize and identify these dynamics, these patterns, and then being able to interact with them in some way, engage with them, participate in it, do something with it. This is crucial in order to gain some sort of autonomy, some agency in order to liberate ourselves from those old patterns.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much for stating it in the way you did, and the disconnection as a mode of survival, huh. I have a memory. I did a healing session once on myself that I actually emotionally shut down when I was age 5.
Hmm.
There was an incident, it was like, "I'm done. I can't," and it's out of survival, the need to survive, to try and feel safe. We're creating a false sense of safety, and the shutting down, the numbing out, uh, will almost always come up when I'm working with people for them
Hmm.
there. So I help them move through not just the physical sensations, but primarily the emotions and what physical sensations come with that. And then they hit a point when they feel numb, they don't feel anything, or they feel shut down, and they think they're not doing it right. They think that they've lost it, they're not enough, they can't do this kind of work, they
Criticism.
feel like they're the session, and I always jump in. Perfect, perfect. Can you breathe through the numbness? Can you breathe through I feel shut down? Because it's actually, to me, it's an emotion. It is stuck energy in your system that will come up. And when you move beyond that, it's sort of like the doors fling open to all the other emotions that we had to repress. That's why we shut down. It was like the bucket was not just full, it was overflowing. We didn't have an emotional resource in our parents or our caregivers because they never had that. They didn't know how to do it. And so we learned to hold it in until it's too much. And then we had to put a lid on it. I'll die. And even, my gosh, having to leave at the age of 12, I can't even begin to fathom my deepest compassion. And so many of us stay, and yet we check out of life, and we miss out on all the opportunities of connection and the joy and all the depth of being and allowing ourselves to process. So our work is so much about allowing all that old stuff, the patterns of conditioning, the needing to shut down, all our coping mechanisms to try and feel safe, to just get us through. And this is what is happening today. We have to recognize everything. There is no free ticket. We actually have to see, we have to recognize, and that's not enough. The awareness alone mentally is not enough. We
Hmm.
have to release the energy. We have to allow the emotions to flow through. There has to be a deep, even physical letting go so that we can open up to the truth of our beings and the joy that we all have every right to in our
Mhm.
existence.
Yes. Bruce Lee often said that knowing is not enough, we must apply, and willing is not enough, we must do. And I think that fits perfectly here is yes, we can recognize and identify these patterns. And so many people can recognize and identify them, but then it can also be used as a crutch where you can say, well, I'm just that way because my parents treated me this way, or I'm just this way because this is my trauma, or I act this way because I had a poor childhood. And it can be used as a way to justify the pattern. But again, that just makes us victims. And when we're victims, we're powerless. We're just waiting for somebody to come and rescue us. So, this is really an incredible invitation to answer the call. And the call is so powerful. I was working with somebody yesterday, and she's realizing that she's in the middle of an intergenerational pattern. And by that, I mean that there's a pattern inside of her, and her kids have that pattern because they learned it from her. It flowed through her onto them unconsciously, unintentionally. It flowed through her to her kids. That's what it does. That's its goal. This pattern, this intergenerational pattern, is to move through the generations. Well, where did she learn it? Well, she learned it from her parents. Where did they learn it? They learned it from, and so on and so forth. It goes through it. And so, for a moment, she was almost defeated in a sense where she was hopeless or helpless, where this is just so big and it's so bad that my kids have it. I feel terrible and it's so bad and I don't know what to do. And after a few moments, she starts to realize that, wait a minute, I'm making a change in this pattern, a very big change. She has become aware of it. And through sessions of us working together, she has now built the ability to not just see it when it's in real time, when it's coming up, but now she can make choices to not do that pattern and instead to do something else. Well, what does she want to do? She wants to be a better mom. She wants to show up more for her kids. How do you show up more for your kids? You got to show up first and foremost for yourself. Secure your mask before securing others. So she's taking care of herself. Now her kids are seeing, wait a minute, you're allowed to have emotions. You're allowed to express emotions, and there are constructive and healthy ways to do that. And it leads to relief. Oh my goodness. So, where once emotions and expressions were not exactly allowed, now there's a place for them. Now, this pattern that has gone through numerous generations and has flowed through all of this time and space to this moment right here, she now has become so powerful that she has the ability to make a change in that pattern. And how wonderful, how incredible. It went from, oh, this is so big and it's so terrifying and how devastating that I have it and my kids have it. Oh my goodness, I failed as a mother to, I can make changes in this thing. My parents, my grandparents, my great grandparents, who all carried this exact same pain around, now are experiencing a change in that because I'm working with this pattern. How incredible. What an incredible thing to do, and what an incredible time to be doing it.
Yes, I love it. I love the story, and this is how we do it, and it starts with the awareness, and then what do we do with that? We still have to take action. So it starts with the awareness, and then it's deeper awareness and what's really going on and what else is tied to it. So to me, the work is about going deeper and deeper and deeper until we actually can release all the emotions that were attached to it. And there's various methods of even, we take on our ancestors' emotions. In the womb, science is now starting to see that we take on as little fetuses, we take on the mother's emotions
Of
and we
course.
can we can give them back, we can release them. And so what eventually happens that I love to see is people come back and report in, "Oh my gosh, this happened." And in the past, I would have responded this way, and I couldn't believe it. This is what I did. This is what I said. And it was automatic. So when the energy is released enough that we automatically were more in alignment with our true selves, then, and like you say, all the pattern, the generational healing, it starts and stops with us. That's what spreads out, and it affects all of those around us. I had a client a little while ago who insisted. Now she was a medium. She was quite psychic and kind of moved energy, but she was not in a very good way, considering divorce, felt like she never really landed her true calling. She did all this training to be a healer and never hung her shingle. So anyway, we're working together, and not the first after the first session, but 3 sessions in a row, she would come to the session. "You're working on my husband, aren't you? What are you doing to him?" I'm like, "I'm not doing anything to your husband." "No, I think you're working on him. What are you doing, Cheryl? Because he's so different. He is just he's not behaving the same way. He said this, which he would not normally say. He's just being this really nice guy." And that's not my husband, and where we would normally have conflict, it's not happening. And I kept saying to her, "It's because your energy is changing, and the people around you can't help but change." And she was just so blown away, and so it was like the marriage just
Yeah.
moved to a new level, and then he was seeing a therapist, and his sessions started to improve.
Yes.
And and so the marriage moves to a new level, and often with my work, people who are married, we're working together, and either the marriage is going to improve or it's going to go to the wayside. Don't you find that relationships just don't stay the same? You cannot change fundamentally who you really are, or how you are in the world, your state of being, and expect your relationships to stay the same.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, you know, hold on and keep going, and anything's possible. Everything serves us. Everything serves us.
Yeah. Wayne Dyer often said that when we change the way that we look at things, the things that we look at change. And I see that so much, which is we look at things through the lens of our adaptations to trauma. So that view of I'm not good enough is usually a very childish view. Meaning that we've developed it very early in our lives. It was a child who developed that view. So when we're looking at the situation of, oh, I'm not good enough to do this, we're looking at it through our 2-year-old, our 4-year-old, our 5-year-old eyes. When we can take that lens and put it down and then choose one that is more constructive, more in line with who we really are, everything that we look at shifts and changes. And I see that so frequently. Yeah, even with relationships, just like you're talking about, when we come into a relationship, it's like water. We're both the same level almost always. And when somebody comes in here and starts doing this work, say they have been suppressing their emotions and they're not expressing them. Well, if you have relationships where people have benefited off of your suppression or your lack of boundaries, when you start having boundaries and you start expressing emotion, chances are they're not going to like it very much. And if that's what a dynamic that your relationship is based on, well, then that relationship is now going to be under stress. So when we're changing the way that we're looking at how we're expressing emotions, everything around it changes. And in these relationships, yeah, you're absolutely right. We're usually forced with a choice. If one of us starts to grow and the other one doesn't, what do you do? What can you do? Well, either you stop growing and go back to that same level because it's like water. It's got to be at the same level. It doesn't work like this. Or the other person has to say, that's a path. That's something that I can do too. And then they have to start growing together. So it's either we grow apart or come with me. And how wonderful when that starts to happen. And that sounds like exactly what you were just describing, where the husband now is getting therapy sessions and they're going really well too. And wow, there's a new zest, a new exuberance, a new exploring of all of these new things that have always been here. They've always been accessible. We can always interact and experience them and engage and participate with them. But we were looking at it through this original lens. We couldn't see it. And as soon as we put that down and look at it through something else, there's all these new colors that we were once blind to.
Yes, and I love your analogy of the water and meeting. We're at the same level. So relationships begin and we're attracted on all our, through all of our great qualities. We might like to go hiking together, spend time in nature, or we love to read, or we just connect, wonderful conversations. And then we are always being challenged to grow, like you say, and it can be just one person that can keep going. And I think a question is to take full responsibility for the entering into the relationship, even if it fails. And even if it succeeds, what was I in alignment to then? What was this relationship to me and how it served me in my own growth? And to take responsibility for the self no matter what. And that sometimes those others simply can't meet us there. And it might mean setting a healthy boundary. I had a long-term friend. Think we were friends about 25 years, long-term friendship. And there were a few times I felt really hurt by her, and she never ever expressed ever feeling hurt by me. Not that I'm perfect, but it was never expressed. But things like standing me up or not calling, not reliable. And I was sort of like excusing her. I had another friend who used to say, all your friends are allowed to have three faults. But then there was a time I was hurt so badly. What she did was inconceivable. And I ended up saying to her, we have a long-standing relationship here, and, we can let this is kind of the end of the road, and if you're open to it, I'm willing to grow through this, to try and grow through this. And so we had a conversation, and I set a really healthy boundary that this kind of behavior is not okay. And then it was about a year later, she did the same thing. And I was like, and I just said, I really felt into it, gave myself some time to recover from the pain, work through how did I attract this? What am I in alignment to? What is this wound of betrayal showing me? I felt so betrayed, and I could then see the pattern. And so I was able, wasn't even mad at her anymore. It was just like I could release her with love. It's, our souls are complete. I've done my learning. I don't need to stay in the relationship. We can always grow. And it was a friendship, not an intimate relationship. But it went from being hard at the thought of doing it to really standing up for myself because I knew it would happen again and again because it kind of always did. But it was getting worse instead of better. And I'm wondering what you want to add to that. What do you see in that?
Well, there's this rapper DMX, and I was listening to an interview of him talk. He has a very tragic story, by the way. But he's talking and he says, "What I do is I trust people to be themselves. So if somebody is a liar, I'm going to trust them to be a liar. If they're a thief, I'm going to trust them to be a thief. If they're a cheat, I'm going to trust them to be a cheat. You don't sit in the room with a killer and expect them not to kill you." And I think there's a lot of wisdom in this. Um, we very frequently get into relationships with people. We see their nature and we respond to it in very specific ways. One of the ways is, I see you're this way, and we ignore it. We'll just suppress all of our emotions and how we're affected by it because we want to maintain the relationship. And expressing emotions or boundaries would then threaten the relationship. So we sacrifice our own authenticity, our own expression in order to maintain the relationship. this is very common. We learn this a lot of us learn this very early in age, and it's a very painful pattern. Another pattern is I see you're this way and I need you to change. So we see their nature and then we want to change their nature to fit our parameters on what a relationship would look like. This is equally as painful and very challenging, and it's painful for everybody involved. Then we start to get into other realms where it's I see your nature. Perhaps you're addicted to very hard substances, and it's very painful to you, and that pain can come on to me too. I see your nature. I value and cherish and respect you, and I need boundaries. That's a very sane thing to do, to protect yourself and to have some parameters on how this relationship would work. And then there's another one, which sounds a lot like what you were describing at the end, which is I see your nature. I see that you do these things. These things can be very painful, but my happiness, my emotional experience in general, is not dictated by your actions. I have the emotional capacity and the emotional maturity and flexibility that I can maintain my own sense of emotional integrity without being colored by your behaviors and actions. And if you do something that is very painful and hurtful, I can see that and I have the capacity to navigate it. The relationship is important. I still want to stay connected, and you can't make me angry. You might do some things that are hurtful, but I have the capacity to navigate these. My emotional capacity is greater than anything that can happen in this relationship. And if it's hurtful, I can navigate that. And this is where I think that a lot of us are trying to get to, is to have this flexibility, this range of motion to be able to participate in the experiences, maintain our connections, whatever we want them to look like, without being consumed by the other person's behaviors.
Yes. And to see that it thank you. Thank you for sharing all of that. That is super helpful. I think we can all look at a variety of relationships, and with that particular relationship, the higher level boundaries I set, then the next time, and it might not be for a few years or a time, the pain, it was like she kept upping the ante
Mhm.
until uh, it was like, "No, I just don't need this anymore." And
Yeah.
it's and one of the things I really visited there was I was taught to be loyal. You be loyal to your family, you be loyal to your friends no matter what.
Yeah.
You don't you don't end relationships. And, there's so everything is always, of course, multifaceted and that's where, I go back to when I came on and what's present for me today, and it's seeing the divine in others and being present with where they're at as divine beings. Oh, I see all your stuff, and it's divine. All our stuff is divine because we're growing through it. So there doesn't need to be a reaction, if that makes sense. And it
Mhm.
can be, oh, I can be present with you. And, it really is part of our I think this is where we're going with our evolution, to be present with each other and all things as divine. And it's so fabulous to be present with you, Julian.
Oh, thank you, Cheryl. I agree. Yes, I think that that's the key right there, is to be present with it. When we can't be present, when we disconnect, we can't participate. We can't navigate it. That's to say, we can't set boundaries. We can't have a say in where we're going. We're just drifting at the whim of whatever gets sent our way and wherever we go. And I don't think that that's right. And so if there's somebody who's having very destructive patterns, let's say self destructive, or they're destroying things around us, I spend a lot of time in nature, a lot. I have a beautiful spring-fed river, crystal clear water right by my house. I can walk to it. I go swimming in it every day. I have all these beautiful nature trails right outside my door. I spend so much time in there, and I see people who want to do that. They want to come out on the river. They want to come out in the nature trails, but they're disconnected. They're disconnected from themselves and they can't see their own destructive tendencies. So they come out on the water and they're forces of destruction unintentionally, most of the times. There are some people who are very intentional with, yeah, I'm gonna ruin this. This requires participation, presence. And it's so easy for me to say, I want nothing to do with that. I'm going to stay away from that. But the question then comes to, how can I engage and participate in that and be present with it and be attuned to it in a way that offers them perspective, awareness, and the ability to the ability to have responsibility or to respond differently to a situation. I think that those are crucial for this time right here, is it's so easy to say, that's destructive, that's damaging, that's hurtful, I want to stay away from it. And that's a very sane thing to do. And I think, again, just like we were talking about earlier with the relationships, is can we get to a point where we can actively engage with those painful, destructive patterns in a way that offers insight and reflection and a new path in how to interact with this? That might be something that we're working towards.
Yes, I love what you're saying because you're talking about speaking, acting from your state of being. So it's not that you feel better and you need to criticize or condone or whatever it is, but to be in the moment, to be present with yourself, and you're able to because you've healed so much and you're in this place, you're able to be in this place of authenticity, the state of being, and we don't know what the result will be. And so knowing in the moment what your authentic response is from a place of connection. We are not separate. And I think that's what you're speaking to. And I have similar, I'm out in nature every day. I'm currently living up in the mountains of Colorado. I've lived at the ocean in Victoria and Vancouver. And so walking, spending time in nature every day is vital to my well-being. And it is being in that place of presence, so we don't know who we're going to meet, who else we're going to come across, or what will happen, um, but it serves us as well as others, and so I think it really is trusting that, and does it have to be spending time in nature? It's whatever works for you, I've known people who I have this thought of often people with addictions feel so deeply and they're very sensitive. And
Hmm.
so it's just been so hard for them in our world to feel their emotions. And so many of them can come out of it. They come out of addiction and they realize they're all about music. Or maybe they still have addictive tendencies, but there's this expression. And so I've jammed, I've played the djembe drum, jamming with people who are very sensitive emotionally, and they put it through the music, and they just express and allow that to flow. So then I'm not in nature, that's kinda my thing, and other things, French cooking is a thing for me, but to ride their wave, to
Hmm.
join up with them and connect in their state of being, where I've had the experience of drumming the djembe, and it's like the djembe is drumming me, my hands have their own, and we are just existing together in this music. So, I haven't thought of that in a long time. It hasn't happened for a long time, but, um, I think it's finding that connection in our authentic state of being who and what we are in our truth.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear you. I'm a
And we
drummer.
have to
What was
Are
that?
you we have we have to release the wounds to be able to get there. We have to release
Mhm.
the energy that's stopping. What kind of drummer are you?
I played drum set and I have a djembe sitting right there and a handpan and all sorts of percussion stuff all around me here. So I hear you on that. It's an interesting way of, it's like these tools become extensions of who we are, which, when I do a martial art, when I'm practicing with a sword, for instance, that's what it becomes. Is that's the goal, is to see this as an extension of myself. How can I express myself as authentically as possible? This is something Bruce Lee also talked about, which is, how can I express myself as authentically as possible, even in the midst of violent actions? So, how can I still maintain my sense of who I truly am, even in the most stressful situations? And yes, everybody that I've ever worked with who has addictions, and I think that every one of us is addicted to something in some way, I find that when I ask, what does it do for you, it provides some relief, usually from emotions. And sensitive people are usually the most vulnerable in the situation because, well, how many of us had nurturing, emotionally mature, attuned parents, meaning that they were connected to our emotional experience and were able to show us how to navigate it? Well, hardly any of us. I've never actually met somebody who had that. So we're sensitive. We feel these emotions so deeply, and then we never learn what to do with them. So the only thing that really becomes available is when they're overwhelming, as we disconnect from them. And that's why you see so many artists, writers, musicians, painters, all who are so sensitive. And the music becomes this expression of the emotion. It can be very useful, it can be very helpful. And we still want to learn how to navigate those emotions without having to do that. It's a fantastic way, but also you see a super high level of depression and suicide, even among sensitive artists and musicians, because we don't know what to do with these emotions. We don't know how to process them or to express them or to soothe them. And the music can be very soothing in that sense, but we do want to learn how to go into it and what to do with it.
Yes, it's and so we may have an avenue or avenues that we can utilize. And yet I even empaths, a lot of people say, "Oh, I feel everybody else's emotions." And I think it's often just connected to an emotion within us. And so you're a sensitive person, and really being an empath or being sensitive to me is a superpower. It is really
Mhm.
a superpower. And when you learn to process your emotions well, just let it move through you. There's so much magic that can happen in your life, so much magic that can happen with others, how you feel about yourself, and it's just a matter of getting used to it, and it's all energy and letting it flow, because if you feel those, what we call the bad emotions or the uncomfortable emotions, if you feel those deeply, then you're going to be at the opposite end of the spectrum and feeling joy and ecstasy and connection and vibrancy, all those more uplifting emotions, which can help other people around you so much, and just learning to be that way. I know my son struggled with addictions for a brief period in his life. And and I was in a place where I was learning to feel all my emotions so we could, he could have blamed mom and dad, but he didn't. And as a mature adult now, he has all these creative expressions, and he has a partner who's an emotional resource. They are both sensitive. And so that's what's often on the table. He's like, "Mom, sometimes I feel like, I just wear my emotions on my sleeve." But he has learned how to express and just let them flow through him so that when he's doing certain activities or he's engaged, he gets to experience the heightened levels of joy and
Mhm.
everything and love, everything else that goes with it. I'm so proud of him.
Yeah, that's really incredible. You can have your emotions on your sleeve. You can be sensitive. You can be really emotional. We have these beliefs in our society that that's not okay. And if you're going to have emotions, you're going to get put in a timeout, meaning we're going to take away your connections, the things that are most important to you until you learn to suppress those. One of the most common parenting techniques today. So it's everywhere. And yeah, we have to learn to accept that, yeah, we feel things deeply. I went on this bike trip back in 2015. I crossed the country, and it was really, really challenging. And there were so many hills up and down and all around. And that was really like a visualization for the bike trip itself, which were sometimes you're climbing up this massive hill and it just is so hard and your legs are just gassed. And you get to the top of the hill and it turns out it's not the top of the hill. It keeps going. You just go around and around and around. But at some point, you're going to stop going uphill and then you're going to go downhill. And you're going to, all that hard work that you put in to get into the top, you're going to coast all the way down. All that weight that's on your bike, the trailer, all the gear, that's all momentum now that you've carried and you're going to go. And it's a lot like the emotions. That was so painful climbing up that big hill. And it was so joyful to just coast down it, right? But most of the times we commoditize, we flatline all the emotions. We don't want to feel the highs and the lows. And so then we cut out a very large range of emotional experience.
And we end up feeling flat. I mean, how
Hmm.
many people do you have that come to just feel flat? It is like the worst thing to just feel flat all the time, to have very little range of emotion, and all that is, it's all our coping mechanisms, the
Hmm.
shutting down, the disconnecting, kicking in until that becomes our way of being, and humans are meant to experience our emotions. Emotions are just energy emotions, so all of them, that's how we're designed. It's innate in all of us, so when we say no to it, we're only hurting ourselves and others,
Cutting
because
out from life.
how often Yes, and how often do you either share your own challenging emotions or you listen, you're really present with someone else, and it creates intimacy, emotional
Attunement.
intimacy,
Yeah.
and that connection, you can't buy that.
Mhm.
You can't go to the store, you can't find it online. No, it's experienced. It's how we're designed, is to create the connections, to create the love.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I heard somebody say the other day, he goes, "Oh, this guy's so poor that all he has is money." And yeah, you're talking about this attunement, this connection, this active participation. We commoditize everything and we cut ourselves out from life in doing that. And you can't go online. There's no online checkout for buying, engaging into life, when feeling into emotions and connecting with other people's experiences. This is a major part of what it means to be alive. And I think that this facade that is keeping people separate and disconnected is one of those things that is crumbling right now.
Because the desire for connection and the capacity to connect is innate within all of us.
Yes,
It's just the blocks that are getting in the it's just all the condition you already have it all. If you don't feel connected, it's in you and you can access it. It's the truth of your being.
that's right. Yeah, when somebody is healing an addiction, we say they're in recovery. And the word recover means to find something that you've lost. So if I recover my car keys, I have lost them and then I found them. So what is it that people are recovering when they're healing an addiction? Well, it's who they were before they had to adapt to all that pain. they find that part of themselves, all that wisdom, that wholeness, that part of them that knows how to thrive. They have recovered it. They have found it again, and this then opens up to a whole new way of living life.
It's so true. It's so true, and it comes back to we all have the capacity to connect, and it's that connection deepens when we're able to be present with who we truly are and present with the world around us and present with the other. And it's not a cliche term, it's embodiment of presence, embodying presence from one moment to the next, to the next, to the next. And that's where we're heading. I can't say I'm there, but it's where I'm heading, and what a joyous ride.
How exciting! How worthwhile!
So worthwhile. All the work, all the healing, it's all worthwhile. And, and I often say that, it's not comfortable, it can be hard, and it's so worthwhile because
Yeah.
the rewards are unimaginable.
Some of the most challenging, uncomfortable experiences in life are the most rewarding ones.
So true. So true.
Cheryl, this has been absolutely lovely chatting with you. Tell me and anybody listening who wants to find you where they can find you or your work at.
Well, Julian, the first thing I'd like to say is I have a link to my 3 powerful meditations. If you want to learn to help yourself do the inner work, whether you're in therapy or doing anything else or not, it's a great adjunct. And so we'll put the link for that in the chat. So they're free, 3 powerful meditations. So just click that link. The other way is my website, starofdivinelight.com. So there's a lot of resources there for you. And the number one place I'm at on social media is Instagram.
Perfect.
And you can also listen to some other podcasts.
Hmm. Yes. You do a bunch of these then?
Yes, I love speaking on podcasts when the conversation is organic. It's just such a I'm just so aligned with that way of being of service.
Very good. Well, I will make sure to have all those links in the show notes. And if anybody's listening, you can find more podcasts from Cheryl. Please check out her work if you're interested in any of these meditations or any support. Cheryl, thanks again for being here. I'm so happy that we got to connect.
Oh, Julian, it has truly been such an honor. I'm filled with gratitude. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.